Welcome back to the Gill Athletics Connections podcast. I'm so humbled to be your host, Mike Cunningham here, National Sales Manager for Gill Athletics. Hey, real quick, if this is your first time listening, thanks for being here. You picked a good one, by the way, to make it your first one. We're going to have a lot of fun today. If this is your second, third, 20th, 100th, this is the 181th episode, and I know someone's listened to every one of them out there. Thanks for coming back. We are just always honored and blessed to uplift and honor the journeys of the track coaches that choose to be on the podcast here. And so just always thankful for returning listeners, just coming back and giving it another try. Because remember, these are not easy podcasts to listen to. These are, hour and a half, 2 hours. I think today's guest and I are going to go about 5 hours. So just buckle in and get ready. And before I introduce today's guest, and you already know who she is and how fantastic she is and how much fun we're going to have today, just want to give a quick announcement. We just announced this. So at USTF CCCA this year, it's in Denver, we're going to do something crazy. We just announced this on Monday night from 5 to 7 p.m. Denver time. We're going to take the show on the road. We're going to do a live recording of the podcast. I don't know how this is going to turn out. This could be an absolute disaster, or it might be the world's greatest thing in the whole world, but we're going to stream live on YouTube Live. So if you want the link, hit me up on Twitter at Mike Cunningham. I'll send you over the link for if you're not going to be in Denver. And if you're going to be in Denver, I want you on the show. We're going to do 10-minute interviews of just as many coaches, just continuously, just having some fun. Obviously, won't get as in-depth as we're going to get today, but would love to have you out there. So Monday, December 12th at the USTF CCCA convention, Monday night, 5 to 7, live taping of the show. Okay. That's enough of us. Let's get to today's guest. I am super pumped to welcome the director of track and field for the Ohio State University. Help me welcome the wise, the wonderful Miss Rosalind Joseph. Rosalind, how are you?
I'm well. How about you?
Well, you hung in through the entire intro. I'm very happy and proud of you. That was a tough one to get through. Thank you.
No problem. No problem at all.
I am super excited to have you here, Rosalind, for several reasons. One is I kind of think of you as the extension of a former guest that we've had, because she was your coach in college, and now you have, I don't want to say taken over, you have proceeded, postseeded? I don't know what you'd say there. You have a better education than I do. Yeah. I don't know what word you'd use.
Succeeded.
Succeeded. There you go. See, I went to school in Alabama, Rosalind, so I'm going to need your help.
All good. That's good.
We were honored back in episode 89. So if you haven't listened to this, go back and take a listen here. It would have Karen Dennis, who was at that time the director of track and field for the Ohio State University. And really to this day, like I said, today's episode, Rosalind, you're number 181. That's a lot.
Nice. That's awesome.
And each one has touched me and changed me in a lot of different ways. And the same going to our listeners. I mean, we had so much feedback with people like Brooks Johnson, George Williams, Boo Schexnayder. But Karen Dennis, and I'm going to get your take as we go through when you were under her tutelage as an athlete and then as an assistant coach. But she hit me with still one of the most memorable things that happened on this podcast. We were going through her journey, and we were talking about transitioning from UNLV to Ohio State. And as you know now, Rosalind, there are no preset questions. She had no idea what I'm going to ask, how I'm going to ask it, et cetera. And I lobbed up what I thought was a pretty softball question. I said, Karen, so why did you move? Why did you go from UNLV to Ohio State? Thinking, like I said, softball, right? Like, well, it's the Ohio State. It's one of the preeminent institutions. She's from Michigan, so it's getting closer back to home. I thought this was just a real softball question. And she looks at me and she says, well, Mike, I was fired. And I was like, wow. I was like, and the reason it hit me was because she didn't have to say that. There's no, you get to tell your story. So she could easily have just did the softball thing and said, yeah, well, I'm going back home. I'm going to Ohio State, blah, blah. And I think if you watch the video, you can visibly see me, like it hits me. And I was like, Karen, you did not have to say that. Why, tell me more about that. And she's like, well, you know what, Mike, it's important for people to know that bad things can happen to you that are outside of your control. But things can still progress forward positively. I'm paraphrasing there a little. She said it much better than I did. But it really was just like, wow, what a humble, authentic, open person. And I just, it was at that moment I was like, golly, I was never a college athlete, but if I were, that's the kind of leader
you wanna run for.
I want to be under. So normally I start out with, talking about where coaching became a thing for you. Like when you actually, it switched from something that's done to you to like, oh, wow, this could actually be my career. I actually kind of want to open up, Karen recently retired and I'm so happy, I would love to keep her in the profession forever, but I'm always happy when people are able to retire because you deserve it. I actually want to open up with you as an athlete at Ohio State University and Karen being one of your coaches there. What was it like for really being coached by a living legend at that point? I'm not sure it reflected as a 18, 19, 20-year-old for you, but as you gained understanding, what was that like to work as an athlete with Karen Dennis?
Well, so it's funny because I get that question a lot, but I actually, to your point, I didn't know a lot about Karen coming in. And at the time, you don't know what you don't know. You're 18, 19, 20, you're going through the motion. But what I can say is that, so I actually had the benefit, if you will, of being recruited by another woman coach, is actually who brought me here to the Ohio State University. So Karen Dennis came in my sophomore year. And so that transition for me was not abnormal because when they talk about Black women in track and field, that's who I am. That's who recruited me. And so the transition coming in, it really didn't seem like it was something that was as big as it is now. I understand now just where she was able to go, the impact that she made. But at the time, it was every day. It was an everyday thing. And I think that's almost what is unfortunate about it, because it's not until I got in the profession that I realized, the impact that I had in my experiences here with not just Karen Dennis, but just the program overall was not the experience that other people have, because I came in under Russ Rogers, a Black male, Candy Young recruited me, Black female. I had, representation, if you will, in the program. And so it just never seemed like something that I should be proud or feel like, oh, I'll never see this again. I thought everybody's program was that way. But then I tell people so I was a jumper, because Dennis was the sprint coach. Right. And, so we spent, I don't say unfortunately, but we didn't spend a lot of time together, if I'm honest, the first couple of years. So probably most staffs, as much as maybe your distance coach hangs out with the throwers. Of course I know where there's interaction, but track practice, everyone's kind of in their own groove in their own corners sometimes. And so there wasn't a lot of day-to-day interaction with her and I do feel like that's what helped me career-wise, because I spent a lot of the things that I know now, the value that she's given me, I didn't get that or understand that until I came back. And when I came back, I didn't come back for those reasons, because I didn't know. I didn't know anything about Karen. If I came back, if I'm being honest, because it was my alma mater, and I thought, well, this is a great opportunity. And so the things that I learned along the way from her, as a young adult and then as a older adult, are the things really that I'm learning. They say you got to keep learning. Those are the things that I value now, is the lessons in the later years of this career than I ever got as a student athlete. She was a great coach, but it was not something that I even knew at the time.
Well, we'll pick up along the journey as that relationship changed from a coach on staff and representation for you as well, to an assistant coach and mentor along the way. Let's take a step back. As you went to Ohio State University, what did you think you were going to be? And maybe it was a track coach. Who knows? Sometimes people, they just know they're going to be a track coach. What was the thought going in for education in a career-wise as an undergrad there?
Yeah, so no, I thought I was going into marketing. I have no reason other than it sounded like something you should say you were going to major in. And so got into the business school here, took my first accounting class, and thought that I think middle of the semester, I called home, went to my advisor, like, we got to figure something else out. So it took me probably another year and a half, I was undecided for a little bit. I was in communication, which I like
Yeah.
writing. Speaking part is, so I ended up in like a persuasive speech class. I thought, nope, got to figure something else out. And so, really to answer your question, I didn't know, and I think that's important, really for student athletes coming in thinking that they need to know their career path. It's not fair to ask, I think, of themselves. And I enjoyed being able to kind of take some classes and say, I like this, I don't like this. And so ultimately I ended up wanting to be a teacher. So by the time I got to about junior year, the goal was to get a degree so I could open a daycare. That's what I wanted to do, and teach anywhere between, kindergarten and third grade. And so that's what I left out of here prepared to do, was teach.
That's a common theme. Again, after 180 interviews here, when I asked that question about what you thought, because rarely is the person who's like, oh yeah, when I was in 10th grade, I knew I wanted to be a track coach. It's happened. There's definitely some people that we've had that have had that, but most go in to do some kind of service profession, whether it's teachers is a pretty common one, daycare centers, all that is centered around helping other people, which at the end of the day is what we're doing as track coaches. We're just doing it in a circle for right or down the runway.
No, you're right.
But I'm always curious because I don't know that that's a natural attitude for people. And what I mean by that is, I don't know if you're born that way, but I think it's modeled to you. Where did that kind of service leadership, service to others come from? Was it family, parents, a teacher you had in high school? Where did that hey, I want to model this that someone else has modeled for me?
100% family. So I come from a family of high school coaches. My father's an educator. And so, I'm a self-proclaimed daddy's girl. So, that definitely was, he started off at Boys and Girls Club. And it's kind of like we talk about Coach's Kid. I spent every Saturday at the Boys and Girls Club. I thought I thought it was the greatest place in the world now that you kind of get to know the backstory and some of the communities that Boys and Girls Club serves. He was really just doing it out of fun, for fun for himself during the summer. After he was teaching, during the school year. And so I just spent my childhood around kids. He was a PE teacher, around kids playing. Grew up that way. And like I said, he was a coach as well, high school coach. And so this was literally my life. So of course, when you go to college, you vow you're going to do something completely and utterly different than your parents. So I'm going marketing, that sounds complete opposite. And you're right. I think over the years, the aspect that I really enjoyed and probably what sealed coaching for me is that, I started off, I was being asked to work camps. And so, camps to me is huge. It wasn't, as an 18-year-old college kid, I heard I got paid. But when you get later in, and I volunteered I would volunteer. I just want to do it because I just enjoyed seeing, some people that, never even been to a track, others that were really trying to hone their skill, come out and learn something new. It was fun for me to see them get it. It was fun for me to try to explain it. And to be honest, which I think most coaches will say now, in hindsight, it helped me as an athlete because, it's one thing someone's telling you something. When you can step back and see it, it almost gives you, I was like, is that what coach has been trying to tell me? Is that what I look like? And so I think that, that just the experience overall, it was comfortable. Like I said, it was a good fit. It was something that I thought, it still didn't click that I was coaching and I was working camps. And so I was teaching. And upon, getting into education as a major, it was like, man, it'd be perfect if I could find a profession where I can still teach, but then stay in track, It took me all of a college degree to try and figure out how can I teach and stay in track? What could I do? And so, I think here I am where someone said, what you could do that does both is coach.
You bring up an interesting point about, we send 18-year-olds to college and they're supposed to have their life figured out, right? They're supposed to know what major they're going to do, meaning their profession, and it's supposed to be all mapped out. And, we have something that you don't have as 18-year-olds at this point in our lives. We have perspective, right? We have experience, and we go, man, 18, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Heck, for me personally, I didn't find this career until I was 30. I did the coaching thing. I coached for 10 years, and then I did the crazy thing, flew to Vegas and played poker for a living. None of that was the right fit. And then I come here and like, oh, wait, I want to serve coaches. Well, this is the place for me. So it really is kind of crazy weird that we put 18-year-olds in these very expensive places, colleges, and say, have it figured out by now. And it's like, man, I haven't tasted and sampled all these different careers and passions. How in the world am I supposed to know? That's a really good point. So you're doing camps and volunteering. What are you doing as you graduate? What are you doing with your actual degree or job at that point before the first full-time gig, and how'd that come about?
Yeah, so finished competition in 05, graduated though in 06 because I had to do student teaching, so kind of mapped it out that way when I was done with eligibility, and was going to go really back home, go to grad school, get my master's in education, and kind of just settle in back home. And during that time, actually, so John Smith, throws coach now at Ole Miss, was the throws coach here at the time. He was my strength coach as well, and said, hey, if you think about getting a master's, if you're thinking you still want to compete, my buddy's a field event coach down at Auburn. I think they have a GA position open. You should apply. And I almost hate telling the story because this lets you know, even at I think 21, you don't know what you don't know. So Auburn, I remember, I know you flew into Atlanta, so I thought Auburn was in Atlanta, and I thought, yeah, I could go live in Atlanta for a little bit. I'll apply. So I had no clue. So apply, have the conversations there. Obviously with Ralph Spry, Scott Richardson was there, and then Jerry Clayton, who ultimately is who John Smith was trying to put me in touch with. He was coaching all the field events then. Had a triple jumper there, Shelly Ann, that he thought I could train with, and so I went down there to kind of go to school and see. I never wanted to be a professional athlete, if I'm being honest. So it really, to me, was a chance to kind of feel that out while I went to school. So that all happened probably that April or May. They granted it to me. I almost missed the acceptance, if you will, because they emailed it, and I realized back then, 21-year-olds I wasn't checking my email. I remember scrolling through, I should probably check this, and it was like, congrats, and it was all these things with deadlines that I was probably 3 weeks behind. So and so now I'm scrambling, calling, I'm sorry, I didn't check my email. So that I feel okay when athletes tell me that now, but so I ultimately was able to still go down there that fall to start. Well, by the time I got there, just kind of going through the paperwork and things like that, I really wanted to take a year off of school, right? So of course my dad then is like, "No, you take a year off, you never finish." And I was like, I just want to, to your point, I like teaching. I was pretty sure that's what I wanted to do, but I just wanted a year without school to try and figure it out. And I was going to go the professional athlete route and, do it while you're young. And Auburn at the time only had 5 full-time coaches. They actually had only ever had 5 full-time coaches with Coach Spry. And so I was able to be considered not necessarily GA, but an intern coach. So I took, because I wasn't going to go to grad school. I decided I'm not going to go to grad school. I'm just going to be honest, I thought I was going to volunteer, which in hindsight sounds crazy. I'm like, yeah, I'll just come down there and, figure it out. We have this small stipend for you to be an intern coach, but because we only have 5 coaches, you can do all the grunt work that
Yeah.
coaches do for very little pay. And I was so thankful. Oh my gosh, this is great. Thank you so much, everybody. I love care logs. Sure, I'll pick people up from the airport. I mean, I just wanted to be a part of it. And I
Yeah.
was so appreciative of the opportunity to really be, I mean, engaged in a program on that aspect. And, like I said, Coach Fry was great to me. Scott Richardson was there, but then Jerry Clayton, I mean, he just
Mhm.
broke down everything from here's how you do our itinerary. This is what you say when you call the hotel, uh,
Wow.
to then the training. This is how you write a weight room program. These are what shoes they should be wearing. I mean, stuff that I just, I was learning. And so when you talk
Yeah.
about going to grad school, I was learning. And every day, I'm there earlier. Like every day, it's like, all right, you said 9, but I'll be there at 8:45. I'll be there at 8:30. And I was leaving later, and it was never asked. And so, I think now we have to be careful of that. I didn't feel like it was the grunt work. I just really
Mm.
enjoyed the behind the scenes because I never knew what went on. As an
Mm.
athlete, showed
Mhm.
up to practice. I also thought track coaches worked from 3 to 5, and
Mhm. Mhm.
I just didn't know. And I was so intrigued by the profession, and gracious that they really allowed me to do some things and make some mistakes, but just learn some things as a full-time coach on paper. Um,
So let's pause right there because I want to dive into that. I think that's a really important
mhm,
aspect. But I'd be remiss if we didn't get this on record here, Rosalind. So
okay.
Rosalind mentioned she graduated, she finished her eligibility in '05. Well, I coached at Ball State University, so not terribly far, probably about the same distance from Ball State to Ohio State as you thought Atlanta to where real Auburn is. Uh, but so Rosalind was a very good jumper, a very good triple jumper. And I had a very good triple jumper at Ball State University. And this was a really fun time kind of in the Midwest. Illinois had a couple of good triple jumpers. Actually, Rosalind had another teammate that was really good. Just west of us in Nebraska was an excellent, we're talking about, like 42 feet in the triple was a bad day for these ladies. It was quite amazing, all the way up to 44 and change. It was quite an amazing time. It's back when that was a really big mark. Now in the SEC and the Big Ten, 44 is like
I don't
eighth
think I
place,
make a
man.
final.
No, it's
Yeah, I was
crazy.
gonna
It's
say.
absolutely crazy. So I used to, what's a fun kind of little circle fact between Rosalind and I is I used to every day be at practice, try to whoop Rosalind's butt. I talk to my athlete like, hey, look, man, the Ohio State girls are going to be there. You gotta go for, there ain't no 43. We can't be doing that stuff. And I probably talked metric back then. I don't even know metric conversions anymore. So it was just a really fun time. And what I also remember about this, we didn't talk about this, Rosalind, during our pre-interview, was I do remember all of you ladies being so competitive in every meet, whether it was, we were in Indianapolis or at nationals, et cetera, you guys would be going at it, trying to jump farther and farther than the other person. But I do remember how cordial you guys all were to each other. I remember, we're at Ball State, we're competing against the Ohio State and Illinois and all this, but you were all very accepting of our athlete at Ball State, being a Cardinal, and you guys probably didn't even know where Ball State was, but you were like, wow, she's a competitor though. Like, so
Yeah.
there was respect in that. So I just remember really one of the most fond times. This was 02 and 03, just some fond times of coaching, of just rivalries that got after it on the runway. And then after the competition and literally the dust settled, it was like, hey, well, I see you next week. Congratulate you got me
Yeah.
this week, but next week we're
Yeah.
coming after you, and see you in Arkansas for nationals. And it was just
Yeah.
a really fun time. So it's actually kind of neat. While I didn't know you as an undergrad, I knew you as Rosalind from Ohio State, the athlete. It is really interesting to see your progression and where you are today. And like, wow, because I think about that now, like if I go to nationals, I see an athlete, I'm like, man,
Hmm.
that kid could one day be the head coach of
Yeah.
UCLA or Texas or
Yeah. Yeah.
Washburn. It's just quite amazing what people go into. So I had to
Hmm.
get that on record, on wax, that
Yeah.
we used to, not me, my athlete, we used to go at it. My athlete held her own too, but Rosalind usually,
Yes. Yeah.
she usually got the upper hand here. Let's not kid each other. Now, back to giving value and something super interesting there. You talked about being a coaching intern. That's super interesting because I don't know that we do that anymore. Now, I do remember even before you coached, so when I first got into coaching and before that, we used to have something called a restricted earnings coach. So I'll kind of align it to an intern coach. Coaches don't get paid anything now. Can you imagine there was a coach called a restricted earnings coach? So they got paid even less.
They probably made more than I made though.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. But what I really thought was interesting, because I like that idea, because I'm really intrigued by preparation of coach, meaning, a lot of times we do have undergrads that finish up, their eligibility in June, and they are coaching full time in August. And I wonder, it's like, man, as an athlete, and we've had this discussion before on the podcast, being an athlete is a very selfish pursuit, and not in a negative way. What I mean by that is when coach is talking to you about how to become a better triple jumper, you are trying to okay, how do I take what coach said and become a better athlete? You're not thinking about, did coach get the buses for this meet? Did they get the hotels, the flights, our meal money? Gosh, how did this meet even get on our schedule? All the compliance stuff. There's all this other parts of coaching that as an athlete, we have very little cognizance of. And then if you're going into coaching, you're thrown into it. And sometimes we have other coaches on the staff that will help us along. But a lot of times it's like, well, here you are, throwing you into the water. You can swim. You seemed, it was interesting watching your face as you were describing the grunt work, the air quotes there, grunt work. You seem to kind of enjoy learning the, pulling back the curtain and learning that side of it too. Was that something that kind of excited you?
It did. No, it did, because, now I could be, and kind of just to back up with the being a professional athlete, I didn't play, well, I played some team sports in, middle and high school, but everyone calls track and field an individual sport, but I really enjoy the team aspect. And that's why being a professional athlete, I'm like, well, what uniform am I going to wear? Who are my training partners? What team are we representing? Didn't really intrigue me. And so I like the thought, though, that I could be an integral part of this team and do the things that needed to be done for them to succeed. That was my role. And so, in a team sport, everybody has their role. But in track and field, it seems individual, but on a coaching staff, if I could have my role and that was my role, just like anything, I wanted to do it. I wanted to do it well, and I wanted to make sure I was doing it right. And I wanted to do the best that I could do it because, again, it's reflected in, to your point, the student athletes' performance, because you don't think about, the buses and the hotels and the per diem as a student athlete until it's not there and you can't go and you don't have any money to eat and so it's something that it's like, well, if I could just make sure that's not a factor, then great, I'm an integral part of the team. And it really intrigued me.
Okay, you keep bringing up all these great points, Rosalind, things that just kind of ruminate as I talk to coaches, every day, all day, all these, I get every aspect. I get the, coaching is the world's greatest. I make a lot of money, support my family, to, I can't even get into coaching because of whatever reason, right? So I always have all these thoughts and stuff like that. And I always hear, I'm a big fan. You were recently on one of my favorite shows. We run it as a bonus show here on Thursdays, the Athletics LLC. So I love listening. You were just a guest there. So if you haven't heard Rosalind on Athletics LLC, go to YouTube and it'll be on there. By the time you're listening to this now, it will probably also be on the Gil podcast as a bonus episode if you want the audio version. But they are always talking about going pro and college kids in the summer. So it's USAs and world champs or Olympics, things like that. And I've always had a theory, and I've never had I didn't coach long enough and didn't have an athlete good enough to have to worry about this. But something you said there, I've always thought when people see an athlete, I'm going to use the word tank, and that's not a great word, when they don't do as well after the college, so after NCAAs, when they start doing the individual, to your point, you're no longer wearing the college, you're wearing maybe nothing, maybe no kit, right? Depending on your level. Yeah. And they don't do as well. And one of the first things we go to blame is, the college system. He or she ran too many times indoor, maybe if they're a distance runner, cross country, outdoor, blah, 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 blah. And I've always wondered the psyche of an individual because we do like teams, right? I mean, look at how many people call the Raiders their team. We're going to draft this, and it's like you. What do you mean we? You got a cap and a shirt. You ain't on the organization, right? But we like to be in groups. Right. So whether that's being a Buckeye fan, whether that's being a Raiders fan, politics, we like being in this group of other people that we believe are like us. When you are no longer having that, and now as a pro, you're only running for yourself until you make a Team USA, you're only running for yourself. I've always wondered, I wonder if psychologically they're just down. It's kind of the same.
100%.
It's kind of the same to me as when you see someone run an amazing split on a relay team, but they can't even come close to that on an open. And it's like, oh, well, that's because they're running for the other three people in that jersey. Where when they're just in an open, it's like, yeah, I'm still running for the jersey, but it's just me. Like, if I fail, it's okay. I go home with myself. If I fail my other three teammates, that would devastate me. So it's interesting you brought up that point about like, it really didn't kind of interest me to be on that next level, because I was like, who am I doing this for?
Yeah. And you mentioned that with just how we were with other college competitors, because we knew who we were going to compete against, the names of the people that were there. The college system, provided some rankings that you felt like you could follow. I mean, I went from like number 5 in the country as a collegiate to like, I was like, oh no, we just rank you by the world. So flip a couple pages, you're over here in the back page. And so it can be daunting to feel like you said, that drop in just the everyday competition, who you're competing for, who you're competing with. But then there is the day-to-day. So, I mean, as soon as it's like, well, depending on your college system, well, we're going here, you might want to go to this meet. How you getting there? Who's going to enter you? Where are you staying? And you're thinking, what? With you, coach? Like, I thought you'd do that. And you're trying to figure out. It's almost like being a college freshman again. You're trying to figure out, all right, what you want to do, how you want to do it, what's the best way to do it. And I think that's, it's hard to do, especially that first year out of college.
Yeah, I got to imagine that's got to be one of the harder years for sure. Yeah. So what was it like going from Columbus, Ohio, beautiful city, gets really cold in the winter, by the way. And then you go to Auburn, which is, not even an hour from where I kind of grew up, where I went to high school and college. So I know Auburn very well, grew up an Auburn fan. Different foods, were more into barbecue. You probably never had sweet tea until you got to Auburn. The accents are different. Expectations are different from you. How was that transition going down to Auburn University?
I loved it. Well, it's funny. So they had just won the national championship. The women. And so I remember like, you can come on down. And then I remember calling like, do you all still need me? Like, it seems like you all got to figure it out, right? You're doing just fine. Are you sure that's the place I need to be? And we could always use more good help. But just to be coming off that championship and just the energy, the obviously high level program, how that's run, the expectations that are set, how the different coaches did things differently from the system I was in. So, it was very different. The weather, I realized I was not in Atlanta, so but still close
how
enough.
far into the drive from Atlanta to Auburn? It's
about 20 minutes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I was gonna say, how far did you realize like where are we? Where's the campus?
Scott Richardson. I remember he picked me up, put my bag in the car, and it's like, all right, we're gonna drive. And I thought, once you start seeing trees, you're like, wait, where are we going? I actually I didn't know him that well then, so I'm looking around thinking, am I okay? And I think I remember asking like, how long is this drive? And about an hour and a half. About, where are we going? Alabama.
You're like, that's a far suburb.
That is okay. And so I I try and do better now. As a coach, you kind of know where the schools. I knew their colors.
Uh,
I knew their best triple jumper.
that's
I
right.
just didn't know where it was located. So,
Wait.
no. So
We,
the transition though, it was good.
we
And good
forget this.
people, good food.
This was still before cell phones and GPS
Yeah.
and all that. So
Hmm.
we were still kind of flying blind. It's like, yeah, I've been
Yeah.
there or whatever. I
I
don't
didn't
know.
print it. I didn't print. Well, I had never been either. So
Right,
even
right.
for
Oh,
me, so
okay.
I knew the school name, and when they booked the ticket
Oh,
for me, it
Lord.
said Atlanta. I just put two and two together, but
That's
not.
awesome.
I was putting. Yeah, my math wasn't very good.
Well, good thing you had Scott Richardson, because that's someone
Yeah,
you can now. That's
yeah,
someone you can trust. He was all going to take care of you,
yeah,
man. Love
yeah,
Scott
yeah.
deeply. So, how much did this time as an intern coach at Auburn solidify the fact of like, oh yeah, this is what I want to do. I want to
Yeah,
be a track coach.
yeah. I don't think I was even 6 months in, and I'm like, okay, what do I need to do to do this?
Yeah.
And even then, I didn't realize, going back to earlier when you talk about Karen Dennis, I didn't realize that would be a rarity for me to do
Mm.
because I had seen it, and so I just thought, okay, it might not be, um, you know, at my alma mater, but I'll just do it here. I'll
Mhm.
just do it somewhere. I thought it was easy to get into. I thought that there were not a lot of people that wanted to do it,
Mm.
and so for me, I'm just like, well, I want to do it. So that's already got to give me an up from
Mhm.
whoever else says they want to do it. I really thought, especially because they had five coaches, so
Mhm.
it's like there's a spot open. I just thought that nobody else wanted the job.
Just slide right in. Here I am.
And so it's like, well, I'll take it and never talk pay, never. I just want to do this. And again, probably about 6 months in, it was like, okay, this is what I need to do. To the point where I remember having a conversation with my dad. He started talking about, okay, this year at grad school, so next year, and I'm like, let's see how this goes. If you go to school to get a job, and I get a job, then why why go back? Why go back?
Amen.
So
Amen. So what was that like? I love the naivety that you had there of just like, oh yeah, no one else wants to do it. I'll do it. And they'll get a job anywhere, anytime, that kind of thing in regards to it. And you now know the real, obviously, the real truth
yes,
to that. So
yes,
what was how long were you at Auburn, and what was kind of the next step for coaching?
yeah. So spent 2 years at Auburn,
Mhm.
and again, in the second year, again it was year to year. So with the first year as intern, I'll say I made $13,500 a year. That's what it paid. Um,
Mm.
and so I ended up actually getting married down there. So everyone, it's funny, my husband, we were actually married in Opelika, Alabama. We
Yeah.
eloped.
Is that
Uh,
right? Oh
yep.
man.
And so we were
That
just
by the way
prepared to kind of.
is that's the eloping capital of the world, by the way. If you've never been
Is
to
it?
Opelika,
There's no
Alabama,
way.
no.
But I think there's only three names in that record book. I don't know.
There weren't that many people that just heard Opelika going, where's
No.
Opelika at? Yeah.
Yep. Yep. So,
Beautiful
um,
Opelika. I love that. Was your husband from down there or back home?
so he's actually from the Virgin Islands, U.S. Virgin Islands.
Oh,
But we met in Columbus, Ohio. He
yeah.
had
Okay.
family here, had moved here, and so
Oh,
yeah,
very
we met in
cool.
Columbus. I actually just went to Auburn. Well, I'll tell this story because it worked out. But for anybody, it was like, hey, I got things to pursue. So um, if you're just a boyfriend, I'm going to, well, the time I'm going to Atlanta. That's where I thought I was going. So maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't, long distance, but this is where I'm going. But
Ah.
his family had ended up moving from here, and he was like, I'll come to Atlanta too, right? So no,
Atlanta,
we
the
met.
home of the Auburn Tigers.
I tell you, I can say it now because I know exactly where it is. But had you asked me then, I'd been embarrassed. Uh, um, but no, so he came down there with me about a couple months after I started. He came down, but then I was like, hey, another life lesson. I was like, hey, where you staying? Because we're not married, so you're in the apartment. So I didn't pressure him, but it was like either we're gonna do this or we're not.
Yeah, he got to make his own decisions.
No, it was absolutely proposed, and then actually it just was one of those things like I don't know. I think we were both making about $13,000 and realized we can't afford a wedding, so
Right. Yeah.
go over to the courthouse. But no, we got married, settled in, and just felt like I would try and work my way really into good graces with Coach Fry to make a little bit more money. I didn't even know what more money meant. I just meant like, okay, actually at the time I was trying to get health insurance. Like that was, if I can do that, but so maybe I shouldn't say that was part of getting married to. My husband had health insurance. It all worked out. It all worked out. But, it was definitely something where it's like, I'll just settle here and see how we can make this full time. So a year of essentially intern, the middle of year 2, Coach Fry did pull me in and said, hey, I've gone to administration, told them I want to add a full-time coaching position for you. I don't have all the details yet. I don't have it approved yet, but I want you to know that I'm working on it. So I was very gracious. Like I said, it's probably the maybe beginning of the maybe December, January. So in my head, I had a job next year, right? I have a job. So I didn't know what it paid. I didn't know anything about it, but I had a job. I was excited. Hey, it's going to be a few more months. Fine with me. And then I actually remember going to outdoor nationals, and Karen Dennis approached me then. And again, we hadn't talked since I had been at Auburn. So
wow.
because we weren't, she wasn't my event coach.
Right.
I'm getting into but it just wasn't something that we knew of each other, to be honest. I mean, I feel like, like she had to approach me because she didn't have my cell phone number. It was that kind of relationship. And was like, hey, I'm going to need a field event coach. And I remember thinking, you want me to give you some names? Like, what are you asking me? It's like, no, I need you to apply. And so I need you to apply. And she approached me because she's like, and it's closing like end of this week. So do it now. And I'm thinking, I don't even have a resume because I went to Auburn thinking I was a GA. So I had like test scores I can send you, but I don't really, I just, I had a job. And it really took me trying to, I'm calling thinking, why would I leave? Auburn and the staff have been great to me. I went ahead and I did apply. I don't know if I should tell this. I was in the hotel lobby making up a resume. So I do try and tell student athletes, just have one. Just you never know. But I really was conflicted about leaving because, Auburn was great to me. Coach Fry was great to me. The staff there was great to me. And I had a guarantee, if you will. And so even the thought of coming back home, I just, so that part was the uncertainty. It's like, but I'm finally getting it going here. What happens if I go somewhere else? And so, and sometimes Karen tells a story and it's funny. So I applied, I did it. I came up for an interview. She offered me the position and I told her no. And I think we hung up and then she called me right back, or there was like a long pause. And the spiel that I got, and it goes to your point about kind of your conversation with Coach Karen the first time you spoke with her. The spiel that I got after I said no, that's when I knew she was a good recruiter. I mean, it was just she gave me every reason why I could say no, but I probably shouldn't. And by the end of the phone call, I had changed my mind. And so it wasn't a guilt thing. It wasn't, it was more like, she's right. And again, I didn't know her well enough to feel like, I owed her or she owed me
Right.
anything. It just was a fit that um, made sense at the time, and obviously a chance to come back home. And I ended up telling her I just said no because I didn't think I was ready. I didn't
Mhm.
think I was ready. I just got in this profession. I'm still learning the ins
Mhm.
and outs. I could be. I mean, I hate to say I could be at a championship team and be the sixth coach on staff. So nobody's, no
Mhm.
pressure, right? And as long as the
Mhm.
buses show up, I've done my job. Um, the Ohio State position was the field coach, and they had just split the program. So when I left, it was combined. During the
Mm.
time I was at Auburn, they split it. So Karen was just calling me about working with the women. So now you have three coaches, and had a distance coach plan. She was always sprints and hurdles, and essentially I was going to be in charge of all the field. um, and I thought, like, that sounds like a lot of work. That is going to be, you know, not necessarily scrutinized, but there's nowhere to hide.
More
There's nowhere to
visibility.
hide.
Mhm.
More
Mhm.
visibility,
Mhm.
and so not that I was necessarily afraid of the workload. I
Mhm.
didn't want to put her in a position that she had to either,
Mhm.
um, defend or,
Mhm.
I felt like you can get somebody better. That in my head, that's what I thought, and I think that goes back to the conversation. It's like, well, who's better for women's field event at Ohio State than you? And I didn't have an answer,
Mhm.
uh, but I just didn't, just the profession. She talked about representation.
Mhm.
She talked about the chance to kind of step out and be more visible as a good thing, not necessarily something to be afraid of, and really related it to being a student athlete, the competitiveness there, opportunity to build a legacy and leave a legacy beyond just being an athlete. I mean, it was just a lot of great things. And then if that,
Mhm.
I mean, ultimately, if that was a profession that I wanted to pursue, um, she'd teach it to me. And obviously I was learning a lot of great things at Auburn, but I hadn't learned how to be a Black woman in this sport at
Mhm.
Auburn. And so, it was just all around opportunity that I at the end, I'm like, this, I would be crazy not to take this job. And so I said, okay, I'm going home to pack.
Y-
Going
You
home to
know,
pack.
super interesting. I always go back to one of the things that George Williams, longtime coach at St. Augustine,
Mm-hmm.
is kind of famous for saying is, if you're not in the huddle, you don't know the play. And what I
Mm-hmm.
think about with that story you just shared is, on the outside, we may see Rosalind, now the director of track and field at
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State, before that, and we're going to get there at Carbondale, and before that at Ohio State. And it's like, oh, yeah, it was better pay. It was back, closer to
Mm-hmm.
home. Of course, that's why she took it. My jaw kind of dropped when you said, I told her no. First of all, I can't imagine saying no to Karen Dennis. That's just amazing. And the story kind of reflected of how
Well, it's
hard.
not. It's not. I'm saying it's not going to work out for you. That's for
Right.
sure.
Yeah. But and then on the other side of it too, I can see you didn't use this word, this is gonna be my word here, the intimidation. I mean, you were a horizontal jumper. Here you are
Mm-hmm.
at a Big Ten institution, and you're the field events coach. So you're gonna coach things
Mm-hmm.
that you had maybe not ever even thought of. Like, yeah, I know it's part of the
Mm-hmm.
team, but I don't ever, and
Yeah.
so there could be a little bit of like, holy cow, how am I even supposed to do
Yeah.
this? And I don't want to let down my team. And it's my alma
Yeah.
mater. So there's extra pressure of like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to let down my alma mater. So I could
Mm-hmm.
see that. Where on the other side, we'd have told ourselves like, oh, negotiating for higher pay and blah, blah,
Mm-hmm.
blah, blah. And you didn't mention that at all. You were talking more about fit and function as
Mm-hmm.
you to the team and for now a career that you're
Mm-hmm.
starting.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't know. I mean, just and and maybe I should. And I think these are important conversations to have. Probably separately when you talk about pay for women and things like that. But at the time, I just wherever I am, and I tell tell my staff and athletes now, I'm very protective of my good name, and so I want to make sure that I do a good job, and that I'm put in a position to do a good job. So
Mm-hmm.
there's some scenarios where you have to say no because it's just not going to work out. But
Mhm.
this was one of those situations where there wasn't really a reason other than some intimidation factor. But even that was self-inflicted, if you will. If I really looked at, what I had done, what was being asked me to do, then um, if I had learned all the other stuff, I was pretty confident I figured it out here. It was really just an age and a tenure thing, because again, I just thought people didn't want to coach. So, all right, I'll come there next year, Karen. Give me a little more time to settle in here. I just, and not to sound arrogant about it, I just didn't realize that there was a market for me,
Right.
And a desire for me to be somewhere. So even when Coach Fry said he's going to create this sixth position, I just thought that university finally got enough money to create this position. I didn't think it had anything to do with me. And so with that, me feeling comfortable or thinking I could just flow through the profession was really going to be about my hard work. Like, that's what I wanted it to be on, because they knew I'd do a good job, not because I checked the box or that they knew me. Because when I went to Auburn, they didn't know me at all. And so it was just a matter of, no, I'll do a good job for you. And I wanted to make sure that any move I made, that I could do that.
It made me think, as you were talking about the process and the naivety of not knowing, like, oh, next year, Karen, I'll, because it'll be available because no one else wants to do this job. It made me think about, like, through high school and through college, a lot of the professions that we talk about, an accountant, a teacher, like, there's this like playbook, like, oh yeah, you get a teaching degree, you do student teaching, you find a job and become a kindergarten teacher, whatever, yada yada. There's like a playbook here. There's not that for coaching. There is no coaching. Well, I know there are coaching degrees, but there's not the playbook written of, like, okay, you want to become a college coach in whatever sport. And obviously we're talking specifically track and field here. But okay, here's kind of the original playbook. Here's the average playbook. You GA, and then you become an assistant, and then blah, blah, blah. Maybe I've never thought about this, and what we're doing here with the Guild Connections podcast. Maybe we're helping kind of write that story of, like, okay, we don't have a lot of student athletes that listen. Our age demographic shows us that it's pretty much coaches and up, but we do have some athletes, and I wonder if historically this might help people get in and not get in, meaning don't get into coaching if it's not the right thing for you, but maybe this can help show through the experiences and stories of people like you. That's super interesting. Okay, so let's talk about coaching a little bit. Now, we don't talk X's and O's here at all, Rosalind. It'd be unfair. Okay. I have, how they say, I'm so old, I've forgotten more about coaching than you know. Well, that's only true because I've forgotten everything on how to coach. I haven't done it now in 17 years. So I don't even try to pretend to talk about how to make a long jumper better and all that kind of stuff. But what I'm curious about is your professional development. You go from being an athlete, and specifically primarily a horizontal jumper, to now you're in charge of all field events. How did you prepare coaching education wise? What did you do? And tell us, when you say all field events, do you mean like throws and pole vault and high jump? Yes. Okay. So what did you do? Because you're obviously a bright person, that you don't just go in going, well, I'll just wing it and figure it out. You're kind of given the sense that you're a preparer, like, okay, I'm going to at least be prepared. What did you do to prepare to coach events that, like I said, you might not even have thought of as an athlete? Like, those guys and gals are over there. I don't ever have to worry about a shot putter. And now you do have to worry about a shot putter.
I have to worry about a shot putter.
What'd you do?
No, I think, maybe the hardest thing for some people to do is I asked for help, because I knew I needed help. So, that was the question, like, okay, do you mean shot put? Yes. Do you mean javelin? Do you mean pole vault? I was comfortable. I actually spent more of my AAU days, but I spent a brief stint as a multi. And so I had at least, like, I've picked up a shot put. I've had, but I definitely knew, then I was still learning the profession. I knew the events that I knew. At Auburn, Jerry had spent a good deal allowing me to just kind of walk through, work with the multi. So I was comfortable with every event, but I wanted that to be clear with the student athletes. And I think in order to do that, you don't want to walk and say, you know, everything. Here's what I know. Here's what I know that I don't know. And then I'm going to ask for help in terms of the rest so that they can perform to their max ability. I think you do a student athlete disservice if you're guessing. They get 4 years, 5, now with COVID, maybe 6, but you know, you can't spend a bunch of time of their collegiate career trying to figure something out. So actually Karen had done a good job of already vetting a throws volunteer. She said, you know, that was a plan. But because you're in charge of the field, I want you to meet with her, see what you think. And so Rita Summerlot was the throws volunteer for us.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one.
I tell you what, you know, that we need to schedule lunch here soon. You know, we've kept in touch over the years, and I mean, just so now coming in, and she just took it and ran with it. You know, it started off like, okay, what do you want me to do? I want you to do everything on this side of the track in the throws area. And I mean, you know, I wish I had her resume for the things that she did, but she was part of, you know, the women's team that had won the first Big Ten championship in school history. And a lot of that was the throwers, you know, with the hammer at the time. It's funny you talk about the triple jump, Mark. At the time, you know, Big Ten record holder in the hammer, javelin, all Big Ten, I think 4 years straight. I mean, just some of the throwers that she produced as a volunteer coach for us. And I bought her lunch every chance I could, because it's like she really owned it as you know, as her program. She and Karen had a relationship, I think, from the 2000 Olympic Games. They were on that staff together. So you know, the things I was able to really garner for her allowed me a chance to be better, to be a better coach. Because again, the more you can see it from different people and just how she worked with the student athletes, and you know, it goes back to what I thought I was doing at Auburn. I mean, she was doing it for free here, and really owned it as her program. And so she was great, and I can't thank her enough, because I can't imagine that we would have had the success we did if I was coaching the throws. And then went and got a volunteer pole vault coach, because I will say that is the event I knew I didn't know confidently enough to try and, you know, put young women on, you know, big sticks and feel like I was unsure. And so had started off with, I can't even remember now. I think the first year I had 2 different, you know, one was maybe right out of college, came in and helped, and another guy who just couldn't really stay on with, you know, family and work commitments. And so our vault coach here, that's still here now, Richard Eben, he came in we posted it like, you know, USA, TFCCC, you know, that posting for jobs. And he actually walked in my office one day. He's like, hey, heard you looking for a volunteer. I'm retired, used to vault. I have all you know, my sons are done vaulting. I want to stay involved. Can you help me? I was like, practice is at 3.
See you at 3.
And he's been here ever since. So, you know, it's been nice to have obviously that continuity with that group. And from the women combined, we actually had 2 vault coaches for a while, because men had a vault coach, and then I think some family work issues there when he stepped away. The other gentleman stepped away. He's taken on the men, and you know, I got to see him at nationals last year with some vaulters. So I mean, he's done a great job. But again, it's really getting the right people around you that are just as passionate about what you're doing, and then just like even getting out of their way. You know, if I can, what do you need, and then I'll get out of your way. And I was very gracious for that.
Is Richard Eben, is he the one kind of long beard and Hawaiian shirt?
That's him.
So at this past Big Ten championships, I don't know how. I mean, I go to a lot of meets, and a lot of meets where Ohio State's at. I don't know if I've ever seen him before, but at Minnesota last year, who did a bang out job, by the way, of hosting Big Tens. Just phenomenal presentation. Got, I don't want to say lucky, but super lucky with weather, although they kind of didn't, but they did during the competition when it mattered. So did a great job. Shout out to the Gophers there. But I was walking around, and it was during, I don't think it was even during warm-ups. I think it was at our practice time. And I see this guy sitting on a chair, you know, Hawaiian beard. And I think I was with the Minnesota pole vault coach. And I was like, hey, who? It's like, I don't know. I've never seen this guy. Who is that? And like, oh yeah, it's the Ohio State pop coach. And I was like, that dude, I go, that dude looks like he is enjoying life. Like he is just,
he is loving it.
Sitting back in the chair.
Even every day, I'm like, are you good? And he's like, this is my retirement. This is what I get to do. So
I was like,
you talk about people that just love this sport.
Yeah.
That's what you want.
I was instantly like, I'm not a vault coach, but I was like, I want that guy's life. Like he is enjoying life right now. Like it was just the most,
and the wisdom he brings, you know, because to your point, he is retired, and so this is now what he wants to do, but the wisdom he can bring from, you know, I ask him parenting questions, and you know, just what he brings to the staff is great to have that dynamic. And I think that, you know, as leaders in general, it's pretty, unfortunately, it's easy to either feel unconfident about, you know, what someone else is doing. But I think as long as the message is the same, you have good people you can trust around you, you know, it all brings value. And so I don't need him to do it my way, because otherwise I'd do it myself. And we just went through that. I don't want to do it. So it's, you know, how can I be, you know, in a position where I'm just supportive of the person I've asked to do a job, and if they're doing it well, you know, obviously safety and care for the student athletes are the main thing. But you know, if I'm not going to tell him he has to wear a certain shirt because he likes a Hawaiian shirt, and that's it. It's not hurting anybody.
That's right, exactly. So when I asked, what did you do for development, you brought up a kind of under talked about aspect of professional development, and that's mentorship, asking other people, getting help with Rita Summerlot, who's just an absolute legend. As soon as you mentioned her, I was like, oh, we can stop talking, because I know you're taking care of them, because she's amazing. And the Summerlots in general are just amazing people and advocates for our sport. So I love that you brought that up first, because that's kind of an under leveraged and under discussed way of professional development, and that's working with other people. I'm not going to necessarily say peers, but people that have done the business and done it well at different levels, and that you can pick the brain of, and well, how do you do that? And I love, boy, your leadership skills were fairly evident here at a very young part of your career, when you're like, I let them do their thing and I get out of their way. That's an important aspect of leadership that some people don't understand yet. Were you doing anything formalized as you're growing up now through Ohio State here? Any USATF coaches ed, eventually USTF-CCCA coaching education came in. Now we have Altus, things like that. Were you doing book reading, videos, any kind of not professional, any kind of formalized professional development?
Yeah, I you know, went through the USA track and field, you know, level, and actually on level 1 at Auburn, then came to USTF CCCA, did a couple of classes there early on. And then I would try and, if I'm honest, I would try and go to clinics. You know, I went to a learn by doing shot put clinic. It was put on by a high school, but now I know what high schoolers are hearing, and they can teach me like I've never done it. And so, you know, I'm going to go there and have this high school coach in the area, and I paid the fee. I showed up and like just a plain t-shirt, and you know, I'm going to immerse myself into some of the conversations that are being had around events, and not, and this sounds bad, not with the peers. You know, what is it that I should know, so that when I get around my peers, we either can have conversations about it. But really, it was more, for me, it was more probably a ground up type of learning, where let me just learn the basics. Let me see, you know, what I should know before I, you know, say I'm going to try and get this master level USA track and field certificate. And I've never even, you know, coach this event. And that was me wanting to be a great multi-coach. So I actually tell people I pride myself on being a multi, everyone says jumps, but I say jumps and multi because, I wanted to be evident, not that even that I'm that event specifically, but that, I have a respect for a little bit of every event in track and field. And I pride myself on trying to know, a little bit about every event in track and field. So, when last year I had to coach a steeplechaser, it wasn't everyone's asking me how uncomfortable I am. It's like, I just, I'm not, I'm not, I want to be comfortable with the sport. And make sure I have enough knowledge to just do as best as I can. And I think that's really what the student athletes need. Someone that's not going to brush it off and say, oh, well, I don't know anything about it. I'm trying my best to learn as much as I can and apply it where needed. So really, to answer your question, I felt it was most important to a lot of the readings I did. And again, early on, I still thought maybe teaching would be, the long term. I didn't know coaching was, I just didn't know where it would take you. So it's like, you got to have something to fall back on.
Right.
And so a lot of my development was still early childhood development, communication, how you work with peers, family, and relationship dynamics, all things that end up helping in recruiting and developing student athletes. But at the time, I was just trying to figure out how to work with people, not necessarily just the event.
We've had discussions in the past episodes here about ego. And a lot of times when people hear the word ego, it's automatic, like, oh, ego's bad. And that's not true. Ego is what helps us dress nicer, get fit in the, stay healthy, strive for bigger, higher, quote unquote, better stuff. Bad ego is bad, right? So what was interesting and a little, I don't know if shocking is the right word, but you're at Ohio State University. You were a very accomplished athlete yourself, and you went to a high school shot put clinic. You kind of stripped bare all the ego of it's like, all right, look, in this world, and these are my words here, Rosalind, I'm a nobody, so teach me. That is pretty astounding humility. Where some people have been like, look, I got an image to uphold. And the Ohio State University is one of the top 3, 4, 5 institutions that have an image. I mean, for crying out loud, you guys just trademarked the word "the." That says something. All right, come on now. You knew we weren't going to pass that. So it's just interesting how you could.
They pronounce it "the."
The. I'm sorry. Yeah. See, well, I'm from Alabama, so the. Yeah. I probably spell it THA as well, by the way. So, to step back in that humility and say, okay, teach me high school. By the way, even high school, even to take that to go to the high school and not say, all right, I'm going to go to John Smith. Come on, one of the preeminent with his wife, Connie Price Smith, the two, if you're going to name the top 5 throws coaches in the world, I'd hesitate to say that those 2 people aren't in the top 5. So you didn't even go there and say, hey, can you just teach me? You went, you kind of like bared your soul and was like, all right, I know you're at such and such high school and you're at such and such high school. Well, I'm at the Ohio State University, but I'm here to learn as well. How did you overcome any temptation for bad ego and say, this is below me? You stepped in and said, boy, this might be above me, for crying out loud. How do you do that?
And it's funny because I've gotten that question before, and I've never thought about it. Just never. I mean, even now, it's a struggle for me when people want to interview me, when they say, man, that's a big job, or like, I'm just showing up every day, putting the work in, trying to do the best that I can do. So whatever that is, I'm not really worried about what it looks like, as long as it's positive and productive. That's my word, is productivity. Then I don't care what you think about me or what you think it looks like, because I'm just trying to do the best job that I can do. And so I don't know. those things don't cross my mind a whole lot when I'm trying to do something. I'm trying to figure out how to get it done. And so at the time I had, throwers that needed to know that the job I was tasked with, I was competent enough, then I'm going to figure it out. And so really, I think, and probably even it's evident now, I don't really have a response to those kind of questions, because I don't even know. I didn't even know that was a thing. Like, well, what did when I showed up in a t-shirt, I wasn't even necessarily trying to hide. I registered. I paid my fee out of pocket. It wasn't even like, hey, Karen, I'm going this professional development. I'm like, hey, I need to get on the road real quick. And I'll pay it was a coach's clinic for high school coaches. So it wasn't like, it was open to anybody. I'm going to go. Not like I asked for this private one-on-one.
Right.
I didn't ask for, can you waive my fee? I just needed to get that done. But to me, it was a check mark thing. Okay, I'm going to go, I'm going to learn, I'm come back home. It wasn't like, I was trying to make a statement, or even you're probably the only person that's ever asked about that clinic. Probably don't even know I went. But it's just, those are the things I think day in and day out, the little things that maybe it's good or bad. I'm just so focused on making sure we're being productive that the image part that's actually harder for me now. When people say, well, you're in that seat. And I'm like, it's a chair. I want to do well, but I just didn't realize it came with so much of the fanfare, if you will.
Well, we're going to get to that seat that you're in. Let's speed up a little bit just for sake of your time. I appreciate, again, your time today. So how many years were you at Ohio State? And talk to us about the growth from walking in as this, I'm going to be doing all field events, to the ownership of it as you continue through your career there at Ohio State.
Yeah. So 2 years at Auburn, then got the opportunity to come here. It was, I'm gonna mess this up. 6 years as assistant with the women only, because again, it was split program. So, and then program combined in 2014. Yeah, 2014. So then associate head coach with the men and women. So for additional 4 years. So a total of 10 years here under Karen Dennis. And then, was able to leave, went to Southern Illinois for 4 years as a director of track and field, cross country there, men and women, and then opportunity to come back. And so, no, it's been, tell me again the question you asked, with the journey that I was here.
Just
10 years I was here.
Yeah, just the 10 years. Let's stay right here at the first tour of Ohio State. Well, actually, the second.
Okay.
Undergrad was first tour. I
was gonna say,
second tour. Yeah. Just the development, and even to, I'm glad you brought that up, that you were, when they combined the program, you were moved into, earned the position of associate head coach. What does that mean? And what I mean by that is, we have different titles here. What did that look like for you? And what did that spur, if anything, career-wise for you?
Nothing really. I think it definitely, you go from 3 coaches, now you have 6. I think it gave a little bit of, not a hierarchy is not the word, but just the tenure that I had with Karen, that I became, actually she's the last call, so I would become the second to last call. And that comes with just knowing the person you're working for. It wasn't about X's and O's. I mean, we were doing a great job on the track, but it was a matter of, is this the person that in Karen's absence, I know, would make decisions based on the whole program, would do it the way that, she's comfortable doing it, can help the staff, grow into what the vision is, and just all those little things. So it really had nothing to do with, these are the athletes I produced, or these are the points I've scored. It was the behind the scenes, who would take care of this program as if it was theirs in my absence, if you will. Who can I call if I can't reach Karen, or if I'm not quite ready to reach Karen?
That's key. That's key. Were there
actually, those are the majority of the calls I got.
Were there?
I'll start with, what do you think Karen would say about? And I would always say, you need to call her. I never spoke for her. No, that's for sure.
Were there additional responsibilities? Not, first of all, coaching wise, there were probably less responsibilities, meaning you didn't have throws now because of the going from a combined or going from an individual to a combined program. Were there additional responsibilities coaching wise? Were you in charge of scheduling or budgeting or recruiting, anything like that?
No, to your point, it actually got a little easier. You know, when you're 3 coaches, those are things that I was doing already with just you know, a split program. So what I like doing is I was able to kind of delegate some duties and actually spend more time on the track. So that was actually really you know, fun for me, is that you know, with 3 people in the program, we had distance and you know, with cross country, they're always in season. By the end of that tenure, that was Sarah Vigoti, who's still on staff here, and so, but she does a great job, and so, you know, but she had 3 seasons. She took care of the things that need to be taken care of there. Karen Dennis was a great recruiter. She did a lot of the recruiting, if I'm honest, when it was just the women. So it's like she's on the road and she, you know, and that was kind of the plan coming in. You tell me what you need me to do, and you do what you're comfortable doing. I'll do all the rest. And so, you know, I had the budget, the equipment, the travel, you know, the scheduling, and was coaching, well, you know, or overseeing all the field. And so to be able to go to 6 staff and delegate some travel, and, you know, not have to oversee the throws at all, you know, because, you know, now we can hire someone full time. It just, it helped. It actually was pretty good. But just like anything, now you're talking about management of more people. And I think that really was the key of that role, is making sure now that, you know, we had gotten into a group with 3 people, but how's it going with 6 and volunteers, you know, and now the men. It was really establishing those kind of relationships and working roles.
You know, I steer away from asking the stereotypical question when I'm interviewing a female coach of how is it coaching men? So I'm not going to ask that. I learned that with Karen, actually. I remember saying that exact thing to Karen. I was like, I'm not going to ask that. And I don't want to say but, because, you know, when you say but, that erases everything you just said.
But you're about that.
Yeah. However, what I am curious about, because it's almost like a new coach has come into the program for the men, because you're combined, right? So all the men's jumpers were coached by someone else at that point, and now they're under a new coach. How did that integration occur of the men's team and the women's team being now, I'm gonna say the same team? Obviously, you know, there's different things like that, but same coach now, et cetera. How was that transition?
It was a little rocky. It was a little rocky, and nothing unexpected. You know, the same fears and maybe some of the doubts that we had as coaches, the student athletes had. And so, you know, there was a year of just trying to integrate. I think that first year, and I feel like I'm gonna forget the year. I think that first year that we ended up combining, and the women won maybe indoor. And so now actually, and I remember celebrating. And on the way back to the bus, Karen was just like, I need the men to feel that. That was her word. You know, the women are celebrating. We have done some historic things. And I think now she's in charge of both. And you all are on the same bus, and you're leaving. And now you kind of have to be responsible for, you know, okay, this group is yay, but I also have to talk to this other group who maybe is kind of down. But I think in doing that, they were also able to see, you know, took the year to see, okay, well, she figured out how to do that with the women. Maybe, you know, because there wasn't a lot of integration of the programs before that. So I don't think it was anything intentional for them, and not that it was a struggle for us. I mean, you know, other than Big Ten, I don't think we ever, you know, saw each other at the same meets. So it just wasn't something that, you know, you thought about. But it took just a year to kind of really get everyone on the same page of what we're trying to do. You know, the staff is the staff. So, you know, some that bought in, some that didn't, and that's fair. You know, you have options, but it took about a year, but Karen does a great job of just pulling people in.
Yeah, very, very true. So you spend 10 years at your alma mater, really, and you tell me if this is fair to say, growing up in the profession. I mean, from I know little to I am running my event group. I am helping run the program. It's quite amazing. Like it feels like there's at some point during that 10 years, there was like a coronation of, okay, now you are coach,
No,
through
there
that.
was, yeah.
And again, I always have a very special place in my heart for alums who coach at their alma mater. I mean, like to me, like when I think about, I coached at my alma mater for a little while and recruited other places, Mississippi State, et cetera. And I just think, man, when you're recruiting to your alma mater, like it doesn't get any more true and authentic. When you tell that kid how great the school is, you're like, yeah, you know how I can prove how great it is. I went to school here. Like that's how much I believe in this school. Right. So I always have a soft place there for you. You're at a great institution. It's not like you have any kind of yearning, like, well, I just want to try to be a D1 coach. Check, you're there. I just, maybe what would it be like? Could I be successful as a Power 5 coach? Check, you're there. You've checked all those pretty fairly, sometimes common career goals. Why go to Carbondale? Why go to you leave Ohio State to become the head coach of Southern Illinois-Carbondale, a great institution. Don't hear me. I've known plenty of people there. I knew Connie and John when they were there. Amazing people. My former athlete, Anthony Eklund, used to coach there as well. So I love this school. Yeah. I'm a big Anthony Eklund fan. So it's not like it's a downgrade. I'm just curious why leaves a place that's obviously very special to you professionally in your career, undergrad as your education, and you leave. What was the reasoning for that?
I really did think it was time. So a lot of the things that Karen had talked to me about in terms of growth in the profession, when I initially said no, now I had to kind of have a self-realization that can I do this? I think there was a misconception out there, or maybe a preconception that I would be the next head coach. I never worked to that was Karen's job. It was never even, if I'm honest, a goal of mine, because that was Karen's job. So really the conversation for myself and with Karen was, but can I be a head coach? Can I be a head coach? And so to your point, the question of all the things, it wasn't really about where. It was a matter of can I do this somewhere else? Or, there is a level of confidence. Am I being protected by the brand? Am I being protected because I'm alum and, it's easier for me? And so it really was a point that for myself, I was like, I needed the challenge. And it was told that I needed the challenge, to me. And so, I got, Karen got the call first. So I say that to say I was open at that point to applying for head jobs. I didn't know where I wanted to go. I wasn't going to go anywhere. We talked to my family. I wasn't just going to go anywhere. And I wanted to know that it was somewhere that was going to support the sport. So Karen actually got the call, from the AD at Southern Illinois at the time. And he had worked there for a while. He was a coach there, a football coach there, became the AD, was there during Johnny and Khan's era. So it really didn't take, it doesn't take much to that math of putting 2 and 2 together on, kind of who's ready. And the only reason I will say, and I think this is important, and there's a fine line for young coaches. I wasn't trying to leave per se, but when I decided, and it was really just in that year. So like I was working years, it was probably January. I'm like, I think I got to do that this summer. That I started updating my resume and asking for references. And Connie, I asked for a reference. And I say it's important because some people have to know that you're looking in order to put your name in the room. The obvious misconception is that I was never going to leave. So no one was going to just call me. I had to be able to say, hey, I am looking. But then you have to be careful. Everyone didn't know that. You know, my 3 or 4 references knew, because you might get a call or you might get asked. So I think the timing of it all was,
That's funny. You got to be careful because you might get asked, right?
You might get asked. No, and that's actually what happened, because I didn't know much about the program. Not like there was a change that I knew was coming in leadership there. So, I wasn't asking her about going to her alma mater. I was just asking in general.
Right.
But that job came open. The AD there knew her, trusted her, and said, "Hey, I need some names." And I've already had this conversation. Here's a name. And obviously I had to do the rest. And so that's important as well, because I didn't know the AD. So it's not like I just went down there and threw Connie's name around. You have to be prepared. You have to show some things that you're ready for it in the interview. But, it definitely was, it was a little surreal. It was very scary, because it went from like, I think I want to do this, to like, oh, I might actually get a chance to do this. I don't know if I wanted to leave. I just wanted to see if I could do it. And that was tough. When I was offered the position, I knew not to say no on the phone. I didn't want to just say no.
See, you've grown.
I was going to say, I knew that is not typically, the reaction you get is someone convincing you to take a job. So I did ask for 24 hours. Like, I need to talk to my family. I need to, and that's actually, and I've gotten this question. I talked with the sport administrator that was here at Ohio State at the time, TJ Shelton. I asked to speak with Gene. I spoke with Karen. I was asking questions on, did they think I was ready to leave? And leave and lead. It had nothing to do with, I wasn't in contract negotiations. I was like, it was none of those things. I needed some confirmation from people in the profession that said, no, you're ready. And they all said that, like, to the point, and jokingly, I feel like I accepted the job in tears, because I really wanted to go, but I didn't want to leave. And so, the conversation with Karen ultimately was, the coaching tree doesn't grow if you don't move, And so, of all the things, and so I almost felt like I owed it to her, of all the things that you've instilled, and the growth that I saw myself do. If I only stay under her, then no one else gets to hear all the benefits of a Karen Dennis legacy, and then the representation. So, even at a smaller school or mid-major school, I was still one of probably a handful of women in the country at a Division I program that was director over men's and women's track and field and cross country. And so, those things, it's like, what more can I give to the sport? Where can I make an impact? I can stay comfortable where I'm at, and ride it out, or I can try and do something little greater. So that really, it got to a point where I just felt like I needed to branch out for the growth of the coaching tree, for the things I've learned. Can I do it kind of under, without the watchful eye? Can I be the last call, is what I hey, that's the last call. And then to have the opportunity to do it, that's something that I had grown to a point I realized that is rare, is that there's not a lot of women, especially Black women, that are going to get the call and say, do you want to be a head coach anywhere? So, to have the opportunity at a historic program. I mean, Southern Illinois has a historic program. It was an honor. So, I definitely had to take that opportunity.
I love the growth in the story from, I can coach anywhere. No one wants to coach, so I can go anywhere, to like realization of like, oh man, not many people get this opportunity. At the risk of running out of time, there's some value that I think you have that I want to approach now. We may not, depending on your schedule, your time here, we may not even get to coming back to Ohio State, but there's a couple of things that I'd like to hear your opinion on. I'm going to start with, and I'm going to channel my inner Karen Dennis here and be very open and authentic and vulnerable here, realizing that I'm a white male talking to a Black female. So I'm going to ask these questions that I have no clue about, and I want to hear your opinion. And what I'm thinking about here is, I believe and advocate for diversity in our coaching profession. A lot of our athletes are female. In fact, it's roughly 50-50, right? I don't know what the percentage is of races, Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, et cetera, but I know there are a lot of Black athletes. And then when I look at the coaching profession, specifically on the college side, I'm talking here, I don't see a lot of Black females. Is that fair? Let me start there to make sure I'm not misconceived in my statement.
That's fair.
Okay.
That's fair.
And so I advocate for women coaches and African-American Black coaches as well. But I'm curious, Rosalind, in our culture, the male is typically the driver of the family. Where the male's career goes, that's where, sorry about your job and your passions, we're going to go where the male takes us in the family, right? How have you, and feel free to answer and not answer any of these questions, Rosalind, right? There's no definitives that you have to, right, in this, but I'm curious, how do you navigate as a mom, as a wife? These are all extremely important roles. In fact, I would say that they are more important than your role as a coach.
That's my first job.
Yeah, exactly. And even daughter, those are things that are more important than our profession of coaching. And you know how much I love the profession of coaching here. So I don't say that lightly. How have you navigated, you started into the story of Auburn, and where the now husband was like, hey man, like I'm not giving you an ultimatum, but this is how it's going to be if you want to take the next steps here. Now you have a great family unit. You have 3 beautiful children. You have gone from Columbus to Carbondale, now back to Columbus. How have you guys navigated that? The mom, in this case, the wife, Rosalind, is going to be a driver of this family as it relates to location, et cetera.
No, I tell everybody my husband, my best recruit, so to any of the athletes that I've coached, it's not even comparable. And I think he's done a great job of meeting me as a student athlete, so I was on the road then. He was not a student athlete. And I think that's important for, I met someone that he's not a student athlete. So it's not like, oh, I understand the lifestyle, but even to this day, he's pretty, pretty well. One, and I tell you right, he's probably actually made my associate head coach. So you probably have never seen him. Probably not at a lot of track meets. Well, now I feel like we got a lot of kids, so. He has his job at home, but he does a great job. He's in management of just helping me of how you talk to people, what are the themes and how you're trying to structure. So we have a lot of conversation, which is nice, but he always is envious. He said, you love your job. You love it. And I love that our kids get to see you loving your job, so early on it was tough. I didn't know how we were going to maneuver things. And that's where my family has been. So for them, I come from a family of high school coaches. They to them, I am living their dream. So, they love it. Where are you going this week? And sometimes my dad will text me the schedule. I see that, the 200s at this time.
Like, that's so awesome.
I don't even have the schedule. Like, how do you know? And they'll show up. He's retired now, so sometimes he'll just show up. Cool. What are you doing in Wisconsin? But so that aspect I think helps with our children, because they also understand that my job may present some difficulties, challenges with travel, and so my family has been great. They're 3 hours away in Louisville, Kentucky, but they're great about coming up, or we'll send them down, or that just that kind of dynamic is awesome. But then my husband's been great about just I like that our children get to see you pursuing your dream, I like, he was more aware that this is kind of a rarity. Um, and so, if our daughter can see you doing it, then that does give some opportunity if you can do, anything you want to do type of thing. And so, I mean, if anything, he's been the driver in making sure I stay in it. But I will say he's been very, very open. He said, now, if we're going to do all this, you got to win. I mean, that's it. He's like, you can't come home talking about we were last. That is the motivation. So the only way I get to stay in coaching is if I win. Because like I can't be doing all the moving and the kids. You love the kids and you come home and tell me you're last. So that is motivating as well. And I think it is a good reminder. If we're going to do something, we got to do it well, because there are a lot of people that are impacted by it. But I think initially I thought, and it's difficult with the travel, but I think initially I thought that you could not be a coach and be a mom. My first child was pregnant. I remember having an athlete ask me, like, man, I'm gonna miss you. And I'm like, where am I going? And like, no, I just assume you get out of coaching. And I thought, I think the competitor in me took that almost personal. Like, I'm coming back,
Well, and I'm glad you brought that story, because that actually leads me to kind of a follow-up question. Assuming that there are women coaches or people who want to be women coaches listening right now, what advice, as a mom times 3, it doesn't get any easier. I have 2. I don't know how anybody has more than 2. Right now it's man on man defense here.
Yeah.
You guys got to go to zone. Yeah, you got to go to zone here. Yep. Anytime I see a family with more than 2, I'm like, oh, God bless you. Like, it's hard for us. Yep. How do you do it? It's just voodoo magic at that point. But what advice would you give? Because we do have a tendency to have women coaches who have children and then exit out of the profession, whether they go to a different profession or stay home with, and my wife works from home. So the whole stay at home, work from home mom, God bless, because our family could not operate without my wife. So, and I know she doesn't listen, but shout out to my wife for that. So they go and do other things because they feel, whether it's an internal, I shouldn't say because here's my assumptions, that they feel an internal pressure to stay home with children, or they feel an external pressure of, you can't do this job if you have children. What advice do you have for women to be like, you're successful, you've done it, you are at least today writing the playbook of how to be a mom and be a successful collegiate track coach? What advice do you have for women out there that maybe think they can't do it?
No, and I get asked this question. I wish I knew the right answer to make sure that it's conveyed, because it's hard, and every day is a challenge, every year is a challenge. Some years I'm like, am I not being the best mom? And then there's some years where again, my kids love it. They love it, wanting to come to the track and just hang out. So there's definitely a balance there. But you mentioned kind of the internal or the external pressures, and it's I can't even say usually, it's always both. It's always both. So even if you're doing a great job, you feel like you're missing something at home. If you're doing great at home, you feel like you're missing something at work. And the one thing, when you talk about representation, it's not just gender, and it's not just race or ethnicity. It is roles and family roles. And so, a lot of what, to your first question, a lot of, I had to have a selfless husband that, when people look at the dynamic and say, so dad is, I tell everybody, my husband is a primary caregiver for my kid. And, with one kid that I felt bad about that. I felt like I wasn't upholding what mom should look like, or what, but then to have, if you go to work and that's confirmed, or that's pointed out, or that's, harped on, it makes you feel worse. Oh, you have to bring your kids, or where are your kids, or you doing something with your kids. But I work for, parents, Ross Fry, it was great. His daughter was on the team. So I saw a dynamic of, okay, kids at the track. And Karen was actually a single mother in this profession at the time. And I if I'm honest there, I can't even imagine, other than just the support group you have. But then when you get to work, so when you're home, you got to feel like your children are in great hands. Whoever that may be, spouse, usually grandparents, even just caregivers. Sometimes they end up being former student athletes who knew your children, and you have to have that. But then, so that way, when you go to work, and I tell you about when I'm at work, I try and work hard. I try and do all the things so that when I can't be here, I'm not using being a mom as an excuse to get out of work. I am always a mom, so yeah, things come up. But I like working for parents, people that understand, and not just. I think it gets a bad rap of the mom because of the gender roles that are assumed. But I would hope, and I told you earlier, I'm a self-proclaimed daddy's girl. I would hope that the fathers know their role is just as important in the home. So the things that the doctor's appointments and the laundry, I hope the men are doing it as well, and understand that there's just some balance sometimes. Not that I have to be gone, but that the dynamic of the staff is that people have lives. You'd have to do it if you were a teacher, if you work at the bank. Like, there's going to be days kids are sick. Why can't we make it an inclusive environment in athletics? That I'm out today. I have a sick kid. That happens. I'm not letting anyone down at work, and I think that doesn't get confirmed a lot. Even when people are like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I mean, that's the first thing I hear. I'm so sorry. If they're sick, and hey, coach, I'm sick. If car broken down, hey, here's what. Everything else, there's a reason, and the kids almost become an excuse. Hey, I'm sorry, I can't. Like, you can't be here. You can't be here. As long as I know, now in this role, that when you are here, you're working hard, and that's what I try and do. I work hard when I can, because there's sometimes that I'm at my first job, and that's okay. That's okay.
I'm always just amazed at spouses of track coaches. I mean, it's an amazing profession. One that I admittedly, as I did it for 10 years, never could have a consistent, proper relationship. First of all, I'm the guy, when people talk about job hopping, I coached for 10 years and I was at 5 different institutions. So I was never in the same place, and it was all over Indiana, Illinois, Mississippi, Alabama, all over the place, Kansas. So when I look at, like, I always think of the example I always use is Pat Henry's wife, because she's always at meets, and I'm just like, God bless you. Like, you have been to a lot of track meets. You've had children that you've helped raise, and Pat is gone a lot, I'm assuming. It's just amazing. And you guys have been together and stuck it out through the thick and thin. Like, it's so impressive. What's your husband's name, if you don't mind?
Dexter,
because I know you're listening, Dexter, my man. A lot of times in our head, right or wrong, when I talk about spouses of coaches, I think of the moms, the wives. Dexter, man, you are keeping it down, man. We couldn't have an amazing person like this in our profession if it weren't for you. So you don't hear it enough. I know you do hear it, Dexter, but you don't hear it enough, my man. Thank you for what you do as a spouse of an amazing individual who chooses to be a track coach. Your kids are better for it. Your family units are better for it. It's going to be amazing, the legacy that both of y'all are leaving with your children and what they're going to do, and then their children. It starts with you, because it started with your parents and Dexter's parents and the family system around. So Dexter, man, shout out. Again,
I appreciate
she
that.
can't do what she does without you.
I'm gonna use that as a Christmas gift. That was pretty good. Pretty good. I appreciate it.
It's true. So, Rosalind, I want to be cognizant of your time. We are at the end of the time that we scheduled.
Okay.
Do we have more time or no? You tell me.
We have about. I got about 15 more minutes.
Okay.
As long as we be done by 12:30, we're good.
Oh, okay. All right. I got it. Because the other part that I was interested in, as you were talking about the transition to Carbondale, and again, I just started thinking about all this value that you have. And so how do we get the value that's in your head and your experiences out to the masses? Is there are coaches that want to be head coaches. There are assistant coaches that want to be head coaches, and they're going to have, much like you at Carbondale, they're going to have their first interview. They're going to have their first job offer, etc. Can you talk to us about the preparation that you put in for not to be the head coach, but to the interview process, you already talked a lot about the references and the be careful what I'm gonna put this in my words, be careful what you ask for because it might happen. But even towards, spoiler alert, she goes from Carbondale to the Ohio State University. So you had to again do the process of interviewing, preparing resume, references, etc. Can you talk to us, give us advice to assistant coaches that are going to have their first interviews, opportunities to become head coaches? What did you do to prepare for these opportunities? The actual kind of blocking, tackling, not the, I made sure I did scheduling, those kind of things, real concrete advice that people can use.
Well, I mean, I think, the first thing is it is a little subjective with people. And so the people, when I say protective of your good name, the people you have around you, what they're saying in the room matters. And I think in the conversation I mentioned, I had with Gene Smith before I left, he made the comment that when you leave a place in good standing, you're always an internal candidate. And I got it, but I was just kind of listening in general. But I think that in coming back to the Ohio State University, Gene Smith called me, and I know he has my number, but I didn't think he had my number. But
by the way, if you don't know who Gene Smith is, listeners, if you were to put together a list of the top 20 most influential people in collegiate athletics, not track and field, collegiate athletics, Gene Smith would be in the top 5. I mean, this is a gentleman who lots of experience, BCS, influential there, Power 5, etc. This is quite interesting to me that you're talking about. First of all, that you went and talked to Gene Smith, because I'm like, whoa, I feel like there's only, there's a handful of people that are allowed to talk to a Gene Smith, right? But then that a Gene Smith is this obviously caring about track and field. I love to hear this. Like, it wasn't like, deputy, you do track and field, I'm worried about basketball. That's so interesting. Sorry, sorry to cut you off.
No, he's always open to growth of people, and so that's why I asked to meet with him. I just wanted to be a better head coach. Again, it had nothing to do with the Ohio State. I just want to be able to represent myself and get some insight in the university I was going to. But when he made the comment about being an internal candidate, then it kind of sits with you, but I didn't think much of it. That wasn't the goal. But in calling, and he made a call a few days before all the announcements, and here's I'm thinking here. I mean, just the conversations we're having about this position opening up and what he was looking for. I asked why me, and this time it was less about it wasn't me. It wasn't me not being confident. It wasn't that I was gonna say no. But I needed to know what it was, the person that's hiring you, what they were looking for, what they saw that I had as a leader, to make sure that it continued to fit their vision for the program. And one of the things he mentioned, and it goes back to, you say the concrete things, but it really is the little things. I'm a firm believer you catch more flies with honey. And so, he talked to me. I've never been asked X's and O's. I've never been asked how many All-Americans I've had on an interview. I've never been asked how many, conference champions. They asked me about staffing, budget, compliance. But then your work with people. And so, he made the comment that everyone here loved me. And I thought, well, that's nice. I've been there. And he said, no. Like, who? I'm thinking it was the staff, or I needed to know. He's like, oh, the business office, compliance, facilities, people that you interact with every day who excited about your presence and the things that you bring as an AD, as an administrator. That's what they're looking for. And I think that's something I do now want to caution young coaches coming into the business. I always worked, not for the next job. I wanted to do good where I was at, and make the head coach look good. So that I was carrying out the vision. If it wasn't going to fit, or I didn't think it was a good fit, then I need to leave. But I was never going to try and insert myself into someone else's role or somebody else's vision. And then I just worked hard. It did the things that needed to be done. I think sometimes, and unfortunately, I think for the women, they'll do all the things and feel like they don't get credit for it. Do the things you need to do. Don't do everything. Sometimes you got to delegate. Sometimes you got to say no, because they're not productive to your development. You know, there are things that I knew. I wasn't in the business office because I was trying to get, you know, get hired one day and hope that they put in a good reference. I was there because that was day-to-day stuff I needed to do. But I knew that interactions with them, they are the ones that speak on your name. So then whatever you're doing it well. Treat people the right way, because they're the ones that are actually giving the references. You know, nobody, Karen Dennis was a reference. I mean, I'm sure Gene spoke to her, but at the end of the day, you know, that's not who he asked. He referenced people in the department that I had interactions with, who knew how hard I worked because I did a good job, or I did a thorough job. You know, how you communicate, how often and how well, and then essentially doing my job to my job. I think another thing I cautioned is I never wanted to come off as the head coach. That's why I said people will call and say, "What do you think Karen will say?" And you got to call her. I never wanted it to be, "Oh, well, Rosalind said," because that wasn't my job. But I was smart enough to know that then I would go tell Karen, you know, somebody's going to call and ask you this question, so she wasn't caught off guard. So sometimes your role is the middle person, but I learned a lot about the ins and outs of the job just during that time, and the people along the way are the ones that really gave me the references. And I think, you know, as you move along and you meet people, to your point, you just want to be genuine and authentic and be realistic about what you're trying to do. I think if you walk around just saying you want to be a head coach, that wasn't what I was saying. I just wanted to lead and do a good job and be supported. The people that see that they'll make good recommendations on your name, but you got to be visible to a point.
Yeah, that is really good advice there, Rosalind. As you said, you know, no one has ever asked you how many All-Americans, how do you coach this group, etc. They asked you about leadership and compliance and the business part, things like that. So if we're out there wondering why haven't we gotten our shot as a head coach, I've coached X amount of All-Americans, X school records. That's not what administration's looking for. That might be, we haven't talked about this, and we won't have time to talk about this today with Rosalind. That might be what a head coach is looking for to hire an assistant coach. Maybe we'll have that discussion maybe at a later time. But when we're talking about becoming a head coach, you nailed it. I don't know if I'm paraphrasing or not. You might have actually said these words exactly. This is a people business.
It's a people business.
You might be on the track coaching, but you're working with that business person, with the compliance officer, with all the other stuff
with the student athletes,
alums. That's really, really good advice. Okay, Rosalind, we are your time is so important. I'm so thankful. We are going to wrap it up. To wrap it up today, you're now the director of track and field at The Ohio State University. It's a top job. There's hardly anybody that would say that they would not want that job, not knowing what the job actually entails. I was super impressed, and maybe I should expect this from The Ohio State University. I don't know. I'd love this for all of our institutions. When you got named the new director of track and field, I love all the fanfare that they did on social media. I think you were announced at a football game or something like that as well. Things like that. Like, I love that pageantry because our track and field coaches deserve it. It shouldn't be just for the football or basketball coach, etc. So bravo to the leadership of The Ohio State University to recognize, hey, we have a new head coach. That is important in our school. It's also a school that has like 100 different sports, by the way. So again, for them to recognize that is quite amazing. You're
36. There's
36 sports. I can't name 36 sports. That's quite amazing.
I could, but we'll run out of time.
Exactly.
But they're all great. They're all great here, and it is nice to be among some elite coaches. So.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I can only imagine. So, what as you're it's November when people are listening right now. So you are 3-4 months into the job. What's got you excited about this rookie season as the director of track and field at The Ohio State University? What's got you excited?
All of it. I think you're always nervous about how the student athletes will receive you, because really, I was gone 4 years. So everyone here now, a couple I
Mm,
might have recruited, but I don't know any of the student athletes. And
right.
so, just how well they receive you. The staff, that's here did retain four. So, they have some continuity with just leadership under Karen, the respect they have for the program. They're diligent in their working relationships. I mean, I know I mentioned Sarah Vergodi,
Mm,
Mason Vergodi earlier.
mhm,
She's now head over our men's and women's all of cross country and distance programs. She's, again, I had the opportunity to work with her
mhm,
when we were just a women's program. Joel Brown is associate head coach,
mhm.
who's, it is actually a former teammate of mine. I don't think we'll get to that point,
That's
but
right. That's right.
yeah. So I know his love for this program as well. Retained Victor Houston with the jumps and multi. That was one. Everyone asked. I knew in this position I couldn't be the jumps multi coach for
Mm,
everybody. So it was important to retain, and he had a great season with some of the jumps and multi people he was working with. So and then Travis Coleman in the throw. So
mm.
I mean, the national champion and national record holder now in the shot. I mean, it really was. I felt like Auburn again. I walk into
Mm.
this this top tier program, thing. What do you need me for? But just to bring the energy and the excitement of being back home. I want that to be conveyed to our student athletes. How great of a place this is, the things that they can garner, after track and field, after cross country, at a place like this, and just add value to their whole experience. I think will show up on the track. Once
Mm.
you feel like this is the place that you can do anything you want to do. It really shows in their performances. So I'm excited about it all. I'm excited about the staff, the student athletes. Like I said, I'm back home, second home, and so all of it's different. That's all right. They're like, well, I was like, yeah, but I was getting the second to last call last time. Now I'm getting the last call. So it's different. It's different. But it's all exciting.
My follow-up question was going to be to have you shout out your staff. And of course, you beat me to
Ah,
the punch. You did miss, because he's one of my very
I
dear
did
friends, your
miss. I just
newest
and I was just
coach. I know, I know.
okay.
So give us your newest sprints hurdles coach there as well.
Yeah. So obviously, the hate say I was going to replace Karen Dennis. That's just not even possible. But
Mhm.
that the sprint hurdle area has been, a large contributing factor for us. I wanted to make sure it was the area that had, people there. Didn't want to put it on just one coach. I know Joel Brown can do it all, but it's not fair to him either.
Mhm.
And so brought in Diego Flacker he was at University of Miami.
Mhm.
But I know we're short on time. The job I left at Auburn in
Mhm.
2008, he came in after me in that role, about a year removed, year and a half removed. So
Mhm.
uh, I know his mentors. I know the
Mm.
path that he's had, and so we share a lot of Jerry Clayton and Ralph Fry stories, and so it's nice. It's weird to come full circle because again we never worked
Yeah.
together, but we just have similar paths and similar mentors, and so when I was looking for, he was in that jumps position initially,
Mm.
what I was doing, and wanted to have someone with a little bit of that background
Mm.
as well. It just was a good fit.
Yeah.
It was a good fit. So, and then I want to shout out my director of operations, Fred Barons, because I tell you
Oh,
what,
Fred, of
um,
course. Yes, yes.
hey, you need, like I say, you need good people to make it run. Yeah.
You really do have an amazing staff all the way through. Even Fred, I've known Fred for quite a while now. He's a great guy. Diego is a Gill Connections alum, so that's why I had to
Oh,
make sure I got
okay.
there. And Joel
Yeah,
Brown,
yeah, yeah.
and Joel Brown is still one of the, for some reason, this is just perception for me, one of the more underrated coaches in our
Hmm.
institute. I don't know why, because he produces and he's such a consummate professional. Like
Mhm.
Joel just gets it done. He's not a loud,
Mhm.
flashy guy. I think maybe that's
No,
why he doesn't get the
no.
kind of outside attention. But I also
Mhm.
feel like I know Joe well enough. He doesn't need it either. He just wants to
Yeah.
do great for his alma mater. So your
Mhm.
staff there, Sarah, I mean, good Lord, you really do have kind of a
I tell you
knockout
what,
staff
I
there.
feel like I'm the scrub. So I hate to say they make my job easy, but I to just really the concept and the theme of the podcast is it's about the people around you. It really is. It really is.
Well, you are one heck of a scrub, my friend. So I did not think I was going to be able to call the head coach of the Ohio State University a scrub on today's podcast, but
I'll take it.
it's in all good terms here for today. So,
Mhm.
Rosalind, thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.
One of the most valuable things that you can give us is your time, and so I'm always thankful. There is no busy time. There is no
Mhm.
non-busy time for coaches. You're
Mhm.
busy recruiting right now, getting ready
Mhm.
for January when indoor gets started, and you guys
Mhm.
will be, vying for more Big Ten titles.
Mhm.
And it was just great to really kind of see your personality as it relates to your leadership. So I think there's a ton of value. I easily could have gone 2 more hours because I think there's, being a relatively young coach and young head coach still today, you've got a lot of experience and a lot of unique ways of looking at the world in a very positive manner. And I just think there's so much value in that. And I'm so thankful for what you did give to our listeners today. I think it was a super home run here, man. Just really awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Well, you're hard. You're in demand. Like I said, you're just on the Athletics LLC, and now here, who knows? Maybe it's Johnny Carson.
Well, I tell and not, but I told him I'm selective again. I am
Okay,
selective,
good.
just from a time perspective, but also from
Sure.
I don't know how the story's being told, so I like to be selective.
You
So
lead in this story. That's right. That's it. Well, thank you again for being here today at the Gill Athletics Connections podcast, where we uplift and honor the journey of coaches around the country. And, today we had another home run. Like I said here, I'm so excited. I hope you'll join us next week and receive some value next week when we have another guest on the show. So go out, have a great week.
Thank you.